What's up? Today I'm going to talk about um, basically what computer I would recommend for making music. I'm not using my microphone right now. I have earbuds plugged into my thing, to my system right now, so that's what's going on there. But basically, someone asked me how I feel about the MacBook Pro versus like how was it? So I'm assuming he means like um so yeah, I guess what I'll do is I'll talk about it and what I like and then compare it to my experience with Windows computers and music production and then talk about why I prefer Mac over Windows. Okay, so my first MacBook was the 2015 MacBook Pro 13 inch. This is the first Apple computer that I solely owned and used for like work and school and all my music production. This computer was like extremely good. As far as like running games, you basically got as far as like Terraria, and then like that was it. Um, which is like understandable. It could handle StarCraft fairly well. Um, but like it's not gonna play like The Witcher 3 or Skyrim on like max graphics or anything. So or any of the new Call of Duties. But it's an Apple computer. They're more of a creative platform than a gaming platform, anyways. But obviously, it's nice to have a little bit of both. Um, so from music production, uh, for it's good when you need to do like Foley editing in like Cubase and you're trying to do it like you have like what I just did a movie that had like 100 tracks or more or something, and basically it gets a little out of control when your screen is so tiny in tallness and width. The width isn't too bad, but like the tallness basically is the thing that's crazy. So that's why versus a desktop like an iMac or even a Windows computer, it's just like so much better to do that on it. Or if you're going to be doing lots of Foley stuff or track recordings or live recordings, you might want to consider like getting a 15 inch just to have a bigger screen to work with. And then obviously between the 13 and the 15 inch, uh, I wouldn't actually get the 13 inch maxed out like I did. The guy who sold it to me said it was a quad core, and I was just trying to get the cheapest one. So I was like, okay. But then when I had a few months later, I had figured out that it was actually only a dual core. So when I started doing professional music, I was really questioning why the CPU was maxing out all the time. Sorry about that. And then, so yeah, the 15 inch max out is definitely like the best option for MacBooks. I wouldn't recommend getting a 13 if you're doing like professional music. Um, for lost my train of thought. Okay, so basically, it's good. I was using it for a long time, doing lots of music on it. This is my new iMac right now. This runs projects that were lagging my computer just fine on my MacBook, and now runs them like a lot better here. In this, obviously, because it's a iMac. But one of my biggest complaints about Mac in general is like because they try to make them look so sleek like this. Like the iMac has like zero like heat dispersion capabilities. There's no like uh, liquid cooling or anything. It's like got a vent at the back, and I find like almost all the time the vent's actually like on, which is like super annoying and bad. And then also that can cause overheating problems, which would cause like your CPU and your activity monitor to get like really high, like it is right now, for no reason. So that's something that's like super frustrating sometimes, but you have to like learn to work around that because at the end of the day, there is no like mobility and travel with a Windows computer and simplicity like there is with an iMac. Like all my files and like everything that I have like just the access is like ridiculously simple. So iMac for sure is why I like music production. But for example, my first Alienware, my first Windows computer that I owned was an Alienware, and I had the looks like they've probably been discontinued by now. But like 4 years ago, I had an X51. It looks like they have lowered the price of that and made it so the Aurora is like the starting price, but before there was no Alpha, there was an X51. Now they have the Area 51 and then the Aurora, but like I basically had one and it was pretty good. I think it was like it was a Windows 7 and had an i7, not this core. It was quad core. It had NVIDIA like GTX 660 and it had 8 gigabytes, basically this exact memory card and this exact hard drive as well. For music production there, that was like really good in terms of lag. That's where I was making my other videos earlier. So like recording, the thing that's really nice about Windows computer is because they're like prone to self-destruction for the pure factor that they don't like watch their systems while you're using them, and you can basically do whatever you want on Windows. Mac's not like that. It's very like secure and like tries to run as like smooth as possible and tries to like leave room for you to always perform tasks on, like, for example, Finder for me and stuff, like never crashes. Like Cubase crash, any DAW I have crashes, or video game, it's a simple fix. Like takes 2 seconds to force quit it, and then on Windows, because they don't like, it doesn't watch what you're doing or like stop you from using all your CPU on one thing. You can basically just like completely crash your computer. Like I have boot camp on here for gaming, and I loaded it up. Windows, I loaded like my first game and like I did something and it crashed, and then like I had to basically like restart my computer with the button because like the screen for my game was in the top left corner and it was just stuck there like frozen, and then like the task manager gets stuck underneath it, and because it's a full screen game you can't look at task manager and there's like nothing you can do, and it's like the stupidest thing ever. You can't alt F4 because like your keyboard's basically cut off from communicating with the CPU and stuff like that. So like it's super frustrating. So like that never happens on iMac. But then like I said, because the iMac is such a like iMacs are not like good for like per se gaming, and then because they're not good for gaming, like you need to have a nice graphics card to do like screen recordings. If your graphics card's not that good, it's going to be really tough to do screen recordings, as I'm learning right now. The graphics card is okay, but it's a graphics card for like art related things, not a graphics card for gaming, for like FPS and like rendering things like in motion. It's more about like just working with the system in general and getting like the retina display out of it and such. So when I'm like doing recordings like right now, I'm sure I'm gonna encounter like lag issues. Like we can load a big song and play it and see what happens, but basically I can play I'll try to play through a song. I can play this song with the mastering tracks, everything on the master on. I don't have to bounce the chords. I can play it all the way through, no clipping, nothing like that. It just works. I don't know how it's going to go with recording though, like recording my screen. At the same time, I can hear my fan coming on right now though as we speak. So we can see we're So yeah, as you can like hear at this more intense part and the last little bit here, the computer like completely like goes. But like as you watch the screen versus like the videos I made on my MacBook, you can see like it is better, like quite a bit. But like for example, these chords here have been bounced and completely turned off. These ones weren't, and these use lots of CPU because they're like heavily processed. And then they have like FabFilter, like Pro C, and then like Saturn and Pro Q and stuff on it. So yeah. So iMac, I'm not gonna change from an iMac. Like I'm a strong Apple supporter when it comes to music production. However, I would totally build a Windows PC for like the sole purpose of making um like playing video games. And you know what? Like maybe at some points, depending, I might actually use them to like do music that I like record or something. But for like all of my professional music that I ever make will be done on a Mac because Mac is the industry standard. What's a big part of it. So basically, like I will have no compatibility issues just using Mac, and that's like a guaranteed. When moving around files and such, that will happen like ridiculously with like Windows. I have some friends at my university right now who like they have like Windows, for example, and like when it comes to doing like school projects or any work that they're hired to do at school, they're basically like effed because like um my one friend uses FL Studio on Windows, so he has like no ability to even use like Logic Pro X or Pro Tools properly because like he can't even like convert them to Windows or anything. Well, like Pro Tools does run on Windows, but it doesn't do a very good job. And then like he might have like compatibility issues with the audio when transferring back and forth. There's different like path locations, like the way like Windows Explorer and Finder work is completely different. And Logic Pro X doesn't even exist on Windows anymore. Only like Pro 10 or 9 or something. And no, not even Logic 9, not Pro. So like, so he has to basically do everything in FL Studio. So he has to do everything with stems and all that. And while FL Studio is a very powerful DAW for like all purposes, and I would say it's like easily um like the most official professional DAWs in my opinion would be Cubase, Pro Tools, and then FL would probably be a very solid third. Just because the amount of features that FL Studio is capable of doing versus Ableton and Bitwig and Reason. Like FL Studio has very in-depth like audio analysis, like professional standard. It has very in-depth like movie editing. They have a video what is it called? Video player, and like you can line up your stuff. So like Ableton can do it. Bitwig can't do it at all, which is pretty sad. But like I would do that in Bitwig anyways, like Foley or whatever. I could see myself doing Foley in FL Studio, but the fact of the matter though is that FL Studio being like a professional DAW technically doesn't have any Windows Mac support. I mean, which is like really stupid. Like how lazy the Image Line team is. They literally said they have enough sales from Windows. They don't care enough to make a Mac platform, which is like a really, really bad like work ethic in that department, I think, because they should be trying to expand to be on both platforms. But um, like if you're using Cubase, uh, everyone I know who uses Cubase uses it on Mac as well. And then there's it works on Windows, like, but like I said, File Explorer or File Windows Explorer and Finder, they're totally different. Like, so they basically are responsible for running any like process inside of your computer, and they work completely differently, just in like interface and such. So there could be lots of problems there. So like Mac, like regardless of anything, Mac and Pro Tools are always going to be the industry standard for all professional stuff. I don't know that Pro Tools will always be the professional industry standard, but I know Mac will like indefinitely for a very long time be the professional computer because it's an artistic platform, and there are like I've been telling you benefits over like using Mac than Windows. Uh, there are benefits to this system, obviously, when it comes to like low latency recording, with just like the ability to like uh, the Thunderbolt cable, Thunderbolt 2, like the newest Apollos don't even have like support for like Windows computers. Like they just only work on Mac right now, I believe, because they have Thunderbolt 2, and then like their software is like very Mac, and then so that's kind of important because like they have like the lowest latency recording, and they're their professional standard, industry standard for like audio recording is Apollo software by UAD. So in my experience, if you have a UAD attached to a Windows and a Mac with the exact same specs, the Mac will record at better latency. I don't know exactly why, but this is a thing, and my teachers have explained this. I just don't quite remember it, but they have given some pretty solid reasons about Mac that I'm probably doing a really poor job at explaining. But basically, like if you go into any studio anywhere, it's going to be Mac computers, it's going to be Pro Tools, and then like Waves plugins or Slate digital plugins, and then something usually Fab Filter, and then like really at the end of the day, if you work in a studio, you can set up your own Mac in there, and if you want, like with your own plugins and do your own crap, you don't have to use like the industry standard. The industry standard is the industry standard because like it's just what's most compatible with like the real world. Um, so yeah. So basically, if you want a MacBook, don't get the 13-inch, get the maxed out 15. It's totally not worth it. If you're trying to do music production, like if you're doing music production and you want a Windows computer, uh, any like Windows laptop super expensive, kind of, and then like a not expensive Windows laptop is just not going to run a DAW properly enough to record. So like you're going to need something from like Razer or something to actually do like music stuff, because a Razer just has ridiculously high like components in their computer to make it run, because they're gaming computers, and gaming computers work extremely well for music production as well because of the RAM and processors, and that's super important. So in that department, Mac's probably your best bet. For laptops, for desktops, again, iMacs, they're just so, like, I bought a flight case, for example. This thing's like a rock. I'm going to put my iMac in there and fly it back to Finland with me. And, like, this thing, like, you just can't really transport a Windows computer on a plane long distance and not pay a shit ton of money. But you can do it very easily with an iMac because, like, there's a case that takes, like, 5 seconds to put my iMac in there, and then I can take it with luggage, and then it'll probably cost me like $60 or something if it's overweight. So, and then that case won't break, my iMac won't break, everything will be totally fine. So it's like really good for that purpose. Is like when my teachers have been talking about when they go to like from Finland to Paris or to the States, all they have to do is take like their iMac out of their home studio, plop it in their case, jump on the plane, go overseas, drag it to the studio, plop it down, plug in a Thunderbolt, and it's ready to go. It takes 2 seconds to set up an iMac, whereas with a Windows computer, I know for a fact you have to set up a separate monitor. The keyboards, separate keyboards can be a pain in the ass. Mac comes with like simple wireless, tiny little keyboard mouse for like getting the job done. So you basically have to plug in like 3 separate things to a PC tower. You have to plug all of those things in. You have to plug in the monitor and the tower separately, and it's a huge process. And it's not at all meant for like being some universal, like independent, like travel, be light on their feet producer, which is like super important if you're working professionally, because you could easily have to just go somewhere like to work on something, because chances are if you're super important or good at your job, 50% of that reason is going to be because you aren't just stuck where you are. You can move, you can go from country to country, because people don't want to go to you. You have to go to them to be a music producer or music producer or like freelancer. So that like iMacs and MacBooks are just so good for this, like compatibility and just like moving and doing things. And then, you know, you think about it, if you're doing live recordings, my 16 voice serums and all the synth crap doesn't matter at the end of the day, like because like I don't have to worry about that stuff till after, and then you can bounce audio and stuff like that, so it doesn't really matter because like you can get good CPU usage out of the Macs before you have to start bouncing things. So I recommend the iMac, probably a 27 inch, because it can get you the highest processor and highest RAM, along with the biggest screen for working on Foley, like any type of Foley related things. The like almost maxed out iMac is the same price as a maxed out MacBook 15 inch. The 27 inch 5K, I paid like under 4,000 Canadian dollars, and the maxed out 15 inch MacBook Pro would have cost me like around 4,000 Canadian dollars. So that's something to consider when buying a computer. If you're willing to buy like a flight case or you don't need to move around that much yet, do the iMac, not the MacBook, unless you need it for school. You need to bring it to school with you, then obviously you need a MacBook. But like, if it can stay home, and you, if you don't need to bring it with you everywhere where you live, you can just stay in your house. Go for the iMac. But if you need to have like extreme portability, you need to take your computer with you everywhere, then get a MacBook. The MacBook 15 inch is actually like insanely good. Some of my friends using Studio One, um, doing music, they're doing professional work on their 15 maxed out 15 inch MacBooks, and they have like Studio One, and like their CPU like just stays so low, just like this iMac, like it doesn't clip all the time like the 13 inch does, and that's because the quad core is like 80% more processing power. Like it's amazing, like it's really good. So there's a huge difference between those two, and they can't fit a quad core into the Mac, the 13 inch. Like it's just not what they do. So um, yeah. And if you're concerned about gaming for an iMac for whatever reason, get the iMac, download Windows Boot Camp, get an external graphics card that's like $500, and like then your iMac's instantly just as powerful as like a Razer, like super their new super desktops there. All you need is the Razer external graphics card, plug that into your Windows computer on like Boot Camp Windows, because you don't, my opinion, I don't want to run games on my primary operating software because, well, it's Mac. They're not really meant for running games the same way Windows computers are, because Windows computers are prone to self-destructing. So yeah, that's it. Peace.